I just thought I would like to do a review of my Leatherman Sidekick, and while I've only had this for, well, over a month, I've already come to like this knife quite a bit, and it is definitely my favourite multi-tool that I own now. It's also the most expensive, even though this is not an expensive multi-tool. I got mine for about $70 in Australia, which is actually pretty good on the Australian market. Things like knives are just way more expensive over here. It's just a fact of life. But there's a few things about this multi-tool that I absolutely love. The main thing is that it's got a knife and a saw on the outside of the tool, and it can be opened one-handed, so that when I'm at work or wherever I am that I need a multi-tool, or wherever I am that I need to open a knife, I can open it one-handed. Important note, I have not cleaned this, so after about maybe a month and a half, it's starting to bind up just because it's been so dirty, and you know, it's been wet and getting used, and hell, it is not opening very easily just because it's started to gunk up. So I'm going to have to clean it. Yeah, clean all the gunk out and get it moving again. But what I really love about this multi-tool is that the saw and the knife are on the outside, so they can be easily accessed. Well, a lot more easier back when it could easily open one-handed and didn't get quite stuck. So when it was brand new, I could just easily open it, no big deal. It's still a lot more convenient to have this over my other multi-tool, which are like a lot of other multi-tools where you would have to open it up and then open the knife out with your thumb and fiddle around with it. A lot of the other ones I've had really nasty springs. The knife would be a real pain to get it open and then a real pain to shut. With the tools in this, I'm not having that problem. The knife comes out relatively easily. Don't have to fiddle around with trying to get your thumb in there and pulling it out against a strong spring. Comes out quite easily. It came out easier when it wasn't gunked up. Just gonna have to clean it. Having it just easily open, lock in place securely, and to be able to be closed like that, such a massive advantage over having to open it up and fiddle with it. And I have found that using this regularly is much less of a hassle having it configured like this. The other thing is, I love that it has a saw on it. That is just so great for my bushcraft, because, well, if I'm carrying this as my pocket knife, if I'm just going out and I just feel like taking one knife and I think I might as well challenge myself by only bringing such a small knife as a multi-tool, it is a great advantage to have a saw on it. Because this is such a small blade, it's not going to chop like one of my big bowies or one of my other big blades. And it really is not designed for heavy wood processing. However, with that saw on it, makes much shorter work of wood of reasonable diameters for the tool. And I have been using it quite a bit out in the bush. I've been using it a lot for my fire by friction, you know, carving my spindle and my baseboard with my knife, and using the saw to put the little notch in it to collect all the powder for my ember. As well as, many of you might have seen me carve a fork with this thing. You know, just shaping it down with my knife, putting the teeth in with the saw. And so far I really like it, but I'm not too keen on the edge geometry. You see how it's got a secondary or a relief bevel, you know, that bevel right down there? That is not the best for wood carving, though granted, fine carving tasks is maybe not what they really had in mind when designing this. However, for me, being a person who spends a large amount of my free time out in the bush, and as someone who likes to do a lot of bushcraft and of course carving things, just quickly carving something into shape to serve a function such as a skewer or a spoon, fork, stuff like that. But for someone who spends as much time in the outdoors as I do and does as much bushcraft as I do, it's not ideal. That secondary edge is not the best geometry for things like fine wood carving. Now, a much better geometry would be something like my Opnil. Does phenomenally better than this because of its different edge geometries. It's got a more of a full flat grind at a lower angle, and the difference is pretty obvious, and you can really tell the difference when you're using them and switching back and forth between the two to compare them in terms of how well they carve. So I've decided to convex that edge to kind of remove the shoulder from that secondary bevel, just to improve the geometry for fine tasks. Other than that, all I really need to do is give it a good clean because it's started to gunk up. Of all my multi-tools, which I do not have that many, this is definitely my favourite so far. Alright, so that's my opinion, so we may as well go into the actual details of the multi-tool if anyone's still watching this. Alright, we'll start with the three main tools of the multi-tool. Yeah, we've got the three main tools, which are what I use the most. We've got the pliers, or as I think Dave Canterbury referred to them as the meat and potatoes of the multi-tool. Can't imagine why. They made out of stainless steel, not meat and potatoes. The knife and the saw. When I was looking for a multi-tool, I just knew I wanted one with a saw, just because a knife this size, cross-cutting something as small as 1 inch wide, not going to be very fun with just a knife that small. You'd have to slowly whittle your way through it, and that would be very time consuming. So being that I am such an outdoors enthusiast and avid bushcrafter, I had to get a saw. I could have went with, I think it's the Wingman, which is a similar in price, if not the same, but no saw, so I just had to go for the Sidekick. So to be honest, with those three tools, those are the three ones that I just had to have. So not too concerned on what else it came with. So it comes with a combination bottle and can opener, which is a great addition to a pocket knife, especially if you're going to be using it for food. It's got a little bit of a ruler that is in both inches and centimeters with a file on the back. It's got serrated blade, and I really like that they put the serrations on a different blade to the main cutting blade of the tool, because honestly I do not like serrations. However, if I was ever in a position where serrations would be beneficial, I still have them without having to put serrations on my main blade. Because like I said, I use this a lot for wood carving and stuff, and if I want to finally carve a baseboard, or you know, I've carved a fork with this, I don't want serrations getting in the way. But if I ever need to go through any really tough material and would want serrations, I have them. But they're not on the main blade, so they're not hindering its performance for what I normally use the knife for. And on the other side it has the two different screwdrivers. Your flat and your cross. For what I use it for, I believe this to be a very good value multi-tool. Even greater value for people who don't have to deal with the ridiculous markup we have over in Australia. But, yeah, if you want for a not too expensive multi-tool that's still a reputable brand for someone who spends as much time in the bush as me, I would have to recommend the Leatherman Sidekick. Mostly because of the saw and the fact that the main tools of the saw and knife are on the outside and can be opened one-handed if they're not all gunked up. And of course there is the pliers to help you get hot things off of your fire. Okay, so for anyone who's still watching, fun little story relating to a multi-tool. So one time I was out bush teaching some mates of mine about boiling water to make it safe to drink. And so we were there boiling in just a cheap stainless steel coffee cup. I had the brains to take it off the fire with the multi-tool that I had at the time, which was not as nice of a multi-tool as this one, but a multi-tool the same. I had the common sense, yes I know, that's my superpower, common sense. But I had the common sense to take it off the fire with my multi-tool. However, I can't remember what happened, but I got distracted. I can't remember if they needed my help with something or they asked me a question about something, but I got distracted for a bit, had to deal with something else for a few minutes, came back, and picked the cup up with my hand. Yeah, it hurt. And so I was there for maybe another hour with my hand in a waterfall trying to cool it down because it was just hurting so bad. But oh, there's a little story for you. Alright everyone, that's my review of the Leatherman Sidekick. I really like it for the outdoors and bushcraft, mostly because of the saw. But that's my review of the Leatherman Sidekick. I really like it for ease of use and when it's not all gunked up, how efficient it is. I really like the ergonomics and efficiency of the design. However, I would like to improve the geometry on the blade, but I really love having the saw on it for a wilderness type environment such as where I am now and where I spend a large portion of my time. Alright everyone, I hope I haven't bored you all to death. See you next time.